Welcome to the Loan Officer Team Training Podcast. My name is Irene Duford. I'm your host, and I have a super special guest today. I will tell you that Dr. Russell Teams has saved my life. I've told him that several times over the last years, but it's really, really true. And we're going to talk about how that happened today. I know this isn't a typical loan officer talk that we're having today, but it is very important because loan officers get really stressed out. Real estate is a very stressful business, and mortgages can be a really stressful business. And it's a business where there's more heart attacks, there's more stress related problems. There's a lot of things like that. So I thought I'd bring my friend, my doctor, on to talk about how a doctor like him could help what in the areas that you need help in. So we're going to just welcome Dr. Teams. I'm so glad to have you here.
It's awesome to be here. We've been talking about this for years, so it's nice to finally hop online and jump into our podcasting here. I mean, I can just kind of introduce and just tell people kind of what we do, and then we can expand.
That would be great. Let's start with tell us what you do.
So I'm a board certified chiropractic neurologist. The other term that you might hear being used or search for is a functional neurologist. So we are not medical doctors. We do not prescribe drugs. We do not prescribe surgeries. We don't do anything like that. Essentially, what we do is we do an evaluation process to see what's working and what's not working, or where on a scale of 10 something might be working. And then we try to increase the efficiency or function of those parts of the brain. And we tend to use the brain or really the body to heal the brain. So we might do an arm movement, we might do a head movement, we might do an eye movement, and that helps to kind of recalibrate the whole system. And so like around the office, right up here on the wall, I have something that says pathways plus integration equals function, or tolerance, right? And so as an example, if somebody hits their head, they're going to lose the integration and pathways working together. So that's when all these symptoms come out. And so my job is to go in and figure out what pathways specifically, what areas of the brain might not be working as well. And so we just go in and start to work through those parts of the brain and body to try to basically make them talk together so that they can tell the same story all the time. So in a basic description of what we might be doing is like a personal trainer for the brain. And so we find the weak areas and we train those weak areas, right? And so ultimately we're rewiring the system, we're calming it down and trying to increase your function to the highest level possible.
And what you're doing is so simple. It sounds like, oh my gosh, how could he be doing that? But when I came into your office the first time and you introduced me to everything you were doing, you explained everything really, really well. It made sense what you were saying, but it's very simple. It's a simple process. It's not anything that hurts you talk about that a little bit. It's not painful.
Correct. So if, what we're doing here it really is somewhat parallel to like what a personal trainer or going to the gym would look like. I was a personal trainer back in the day, like many years before we met. And so it just resonates with me, right? So if you think about it like this, hey, I want to get in shape. I don't know how to do it. A lot of people go and meet with a personal trainer, and then they do their intake. What is your diet like? What's your exercise like? What's your mindset surrounding exercise? Do you have any injuries that we can and can't do stuff? So we'll have to modify exercises and things like that. So when you come in, that's the first thing we do is that assessment. And then we just work through and we figure out what your goals are. And then we give basically exercises for parts of the brain that then create those goals down the road. But just like the gym, if you go and work out with a personal trainer, there's a very good chance they're going to push you harder than you would push yourself.
Yes.
And so also they do all that measuring, right? Like the tape around the tummy, and they keep track of all the reps and sets and weights that you use. So we're doing the exact same thing, but from a neurological exercise standpoint. So that when in the beginning I say, hey, Irene, I want you to move your head side to side while you're staring at a target, and you say, whoa, I can't do that, I'm too dizzy, I find a different way to accomplish that, because that means that part of your frontal system, your velocity storage system, your vestibular system are not working together to allow you to keep your eyes on a target while your head moves. That can cause things like headaches, neck pain, balance issues, insomnia, all sorts of different things can be caused by just your vestibular system not being able to stare at a target. And
Hmm.
so basically we have to start low and slow, right? So in the gym, if you went and worked out with a trainer, the sign of a bad trainer, in my opinion, would be putting like loading the squat rack up and having you do your 1 rep max the first time you meet. If you're never Olympic lifted, if you've never been a football player, if you've never been a wrestler, somebody who's used to pushing weight around, like we've got to just check your form. I want you to sit up from that seat without using your hands. What happens with your knees? What happens with your hips? Do your knees cave in? Is there like a biomechanical problem here? So we work low and slow from the beginning to try to create almost that Olympic lifter out of someone if that's like their goal.
Yes.
Most people aren't Olympic lifters, and so they just want to be able to go to the gym, know the equipment, feel comfortable, and feel like they got a good workout in, right?
Hmm.
So people coming to us, you've got to feel comfortable coming here, feel comfortable engaging with this stuff at home, and then do it while you're not in the office so that you can continue to make those neuroplastic changes. And I think you said you talk about neuroplasticity with your loan officers too, right? So
Yes.
it's those habits that create the neuroplasticity, meaning that if you go to the gym often, you should build bigger muscles. If you're doing the brain gym, so to speak, you should build improved performance around that. So, like your big discussion was stress management, essentially.
Hmm.
So, what are the constant things that happen? Are they under your control or are they not under your control? That's the first thing you think of. Like, I'm sure in the mortgage business, a lot of people are going out there and spending money they shouldn't right before they're buying a house, and it blows the deal,
Yes.
right? That is completely outside of your control, especially if you told them and they did it anyway, right?
Hmm.
So the options I think I would look at is you have the option of highly or overtraining the individual and scaring the daylights out of them to like literally don't spend a single dime before this thing closes, or you have to work on your own stress management to say, hey, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. Like I did my piece, I did my training, but here I'm going to do these breathing exercises and maybe these other calming exercises, maybe use some different pieces of equipment to help bring that stress level down because you've had it happen so many times. It's almost like a PTSD thing. You're like, I just know this deal is going to get busted by this person. They're just not listening. They're going to spend and it's going to ruin the deal. Right.
Hmm.
So, like on your end, for anybody listening, the first thing I would work on is self stress management. And we can talk about the breathing that we use in the office for that. And then we can talk about maybe some other basic exercises people can do to help calm themselves down.
That sounds great. I'd love to do that. I want to tell this story about how I met you. I'm doing this podcast today because I want people to become more aware of doctors like you, whether they're in the Phoenix area, whether they fly in to see you. I highly recommend coming to Dr. Teams from wherever you are. And you have people coming in from all over the country, don't you? Like they
Yep.
come in and
Yep. We've
tell
got
tell us about that.
So locally, we'll do programs, say anywhere from 2 to 4 months. Depends on what's going on. Like the higher function someone has, usually the shorter the program. The more dysfunction someone has, the longer the program. To kind of clarify what we're doing in here, we work with people who have basically dealing with like post-concussion syndrome, dizziness, nausea, brain fog, insomnia, visual issues, vertigo, migraines, anxiety, stuff like that. And
Mhm.
so there's a constellation of those symptoms tends to fall under an umbrella term called dysautonomia, meaning like dysregulation of the autonomic system. So that's like your fight or flight system and your rest and digest system. Generally, it should be like this, where you might have these clients that we're talking about and they're trying to spend money and you're like, don't do it. So your stress level goes up. And then the deal goes through and your stress level goes back down, right? So it's designed to be kind of a push pull system where fight or flight is usually higher than your rest and digest. But obviously, through like the COVID times and all the things going on these days, it's like generally everything is pushing that fight or flight system a little bit more. When you get to a point where it's too high, you're going to lose the ability to heal on your own. Generally, the body is designed to heal itself. right? It's not designed to feel good all the time. And I think anybody listening can certainly agree with that. I
Definitely.
myself, if you're in a state of healing, you're usually or always going to recover from whatever's going on.
Hmm.
It's if, like, as an example, if you're working in the mortgage industry and you're super busy, you're super stressed out, you're trying to not make ends meet, you're just on a roll and you're like, hey, I'm just going to ride this until it crashes, right? Well, what if you're so stressed out and you're burning the candle at both ends and God forbid somebody rear ends you, right? If you get any kind of neurological injury, everything that was going on right up until that point, bam, is going to impact your ability to recover. Because if you were already so stressed out and boom, you have some type of life event, let's say like you have to have a surgery on a tooth, or you get a car accident, or you fall over and hit your head, or do anything like that.
Hmm.
Heck, you get COVID or an infection, any of those things could cause that fight or flight system to stay elevated and never come out of that position. So that's the main piece, is like, if we can get ahead of the curve and calm everybody down before they ever have anything happen, then everybody's generally going to be in a place to recover. That's the cool part about it.
Yeah. I was in that place in 2018. The reason I was referred to you, and I'll always thank Roberto Monaco for sending me to you. And thank goodness you were right here close to me. What happened was in 2018, I was going to a Freedom Club mortgage marketing animal event. And when I got out of my rental car, I fell over one of those curbs, where the car parks up to. And I fell, and I literally fell right here. And what they say about people, like your life goes before you, right before something like that happens, it's really true. I felt like I was in slow motion when I hit the bottom. And after that, I was fine. I said, I'm fine. I'm fine. The typical words. I didn't go to the doctor. I didn't do anything. And I was in Idaho when it happened. We were on our way to Jackson Hole.
Mhm.
So I went to the event and everything, did everything. I had a black and blue face and everything. And I thought, oh, I'm fine. I'll be fine. And a week and a half went by and the black and blue went away, but I ended up with massive headaches. I didn't know what it was. You remember this
Mhm.
story, but I didn't know what was causing these massive headaches. Anyway, after a couple of times to the ER, they did a spinal tap and found that I had viral meningitis. Not the really bad one that's
Right. Bacterial is
not
the nasty
bacterial,
one.
right,
Yeah.
but viral. And we figured that my immune system must have been so low from the fall and from the stress and everything and pushing through it, even though I probably should have gone home, but
Yeah.
I ended up having those issues and massive headaches. Was going to see a doctor. I wasn't really getting that much better. They just had to run their course, right? And I did. And then I finally called Roberto. I knew that Roberto trains chiropractors. He teaches them how to do presentations and things. So I called my friend Roberto and he got me hooked up with you. Best thing I ever did. I literally owe my quality of life to you. I remember going through the process with you. It took a while, but I went through going through the process with you and then continuing on to get better, not just with the brain, but with my healthy eating and getting off gluten and all these things that you and I worked on together. But I would literally not have the quality of life that I have today without it. And I've told you that several times, and I've broken down in tears, and I've just told you how much I appreciate you. And I want people to know that you exist, that they don't have to go to regular doctors that can't give them any answers. There
Right.
are solutions out there that we're not aware of. And that's why I wanted you on this podcast, even though it's for loan officers.
Right.
I wanted them to know that there are people like you out there, either you or someone like you, maybe in their city, that you could refer them to. But we worked together for a couple of years. And well, it's more than a couple of years. That was in 2018. It's
Yeah.
2024
Yep.
now.
In the beginning, it was depends on where you're coming from. At the level of function that you were at was not very good when you first came in.
Mhm.
And so when you're at that low level of function, we've got to be really conservative so that we don't overdo it, right? We use the term now, using tomorrow's energy today, right? Where like you're like, hey, I can work half a day. If I try to work a whole day, I'm going to be kind of down and out for a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to find what we call tolerance, right? So let's say before you hit your head, your tolerance is here. You hit your head, your tolerance drops to here. But like life is this stressful, right? And so you can handle it. Well, after the concussion, you can't do the same stuff because from here to here, this is all too much for your system. And that's where the symptoms come in, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
where a lot of the headaches were coming in. So as we start in the beginning, we start kind of low and slow and we start to build a little improvement. And then at a certain point, generally it's about that 50%, 60% of function. That's where everybody starts to kind of take off because you have to go low and slow. Just like a first time home buyer, you might be like really over educating
Yes.
instead of like someone who this is their fifth house. You're like, hey, just don't do anything stupid. Let's just get this deal done, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so just a different level of conversation. And so there's a little more hand holding in the beginning, but by the end, it's like, you know what you should eat, you know what you shouldn't eat, you know how to breathe, you know what you should and shouldn't be saying to yourself for like say positive self-talk or negative self-talk. And then we get into the physical activity. Are you staying fit? Are you creating some type of muscle activity so that you can constantly feed your brain? Just all of that stuff over the years we've discussed. And I mean, thankfully, like you've never really had any of the same issues that you were originally having. It's just
Yeah,
other things, but it does tend to correlate to when you start to burn the candle a little bit at both ends, right? So,
definitely.
so stress management is part of everybody's thing, mine included. It's
Mm-hmm.
just so powerful to keep your system calm, cool, and collected. It's like you can work through anything, you can handle any client, you can get the sleep that you need, you can be present when you're with your family, so that you're not worrying about work. You're able to turn it off when you leave, even if it's really stressful times.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know right now I just played golf with my real estate buddy this weekend, and he's like, yeah, like the deals aren't there like they were a year ago. And
Right.
it's like, so I know mortgage is doing the same thing, and that's okay. If you've built that network, it's like you're gonna have stuff coming in, but if you let your system go through the roof, you're not going to survive it mentally like you should because you hadn't been doing the work, right? So if you think
Right.
about hitting the brain gym, calming the nervous system is one hand, physically staying fit is the other side, and then just doing the things that keep the right connections between the front part of the brain and everything else. Like you're going to be really stable and you're going to maintain that stability.
And that's what you've done for me. You've helped me get there. Now, over the years, I've always been a self-motivated, hard charger, driven person to succeed and do all of these things. And you have really helped me, Dr. Teams, to calm down, to not push myself as much as I used to. I've made a commitment. Didn't I say to you just
You did.
recently? I've made a
Yep.
commitment. I will not work like I did before. And the
Right.
reason that came about is you got me all healed up from the viral meningitis in this fall and everything. And I was back to doing really well. You also gave me testing to see what I was allergic to, if I had any food allergies, things like that. It was a whole course that we ran together. And you did some chiropractic on my
Mhm.
neck, which I never let anybody do. You know,
Right.
I've told you a million times, I only trust you. I won't go to anybody else.
Yep. That's all you.
Yeah. And you allow me to go slow
Yep.
because for me that's how it worked. I didn't want you to like crack my neck or anything like that, and you did it in a way that really helped me to feel comfortable with it, and
Right.
it was slow, and I developed trust in you, and that's what came. And then we went a year or two with, not really needing too much.
Right.
And then recently I had a major problem with my right arm. I didn't know what it was. I came in, we did some work, and then you had me do an MRI to see if there was anything happening. And then we found a pinched nerve in my
Mhm.
neck that was causing it. I thought, how could that neck in my nerve
Right.
cause the major problem with my arm? And you explained it all. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how we've worked through that.
Yeah, you bet. So, and you hit the nail on the head, right? So, for what it's worth, everybody has nerves that come out of the neck. It basically goes through this part of our, call it our shoulder, and then down into our arm. It goes behind our arm, down the front, down the back of the arm. You can have pain, tingling, or numbness, even weakness because of those nerves. Those nerves control motor, like basically electrical signals and blood flow has to be able to activate that nerve, which then activates the muscles so that we can do the things that we need. And so over time, most people develop some type of degenerative change. And if that degenerative change causes, I'll just use my little guy here. So if you guys can see this, okay. So as we age, we tend to have compression happening between our vertebrae. This is your disc, this is the bone, right? So if you can see right in here, the more compression you have, the more opportunity you have for that disc to come out and irritate that nerve. So that's what you had going on.
Yes.
So what we had to do was use a certain piece of equipment. It's a table that basically pulls you further apart so that it goes from here and it slowly reduces that disc back into where the disc should be. So ultimately, we have, and in all honesty, these freaking discs, they just take a while to heal because they just have really bad blood supply. So we have to do repetitive treatments over the course of time. And I think it was about 2 months, maybe three,
Yes,
2 to 3 months.
3 months.
Is generally a pretty good place for timeline that you can expect for these disc injuries to heal. Now, they should heal on their own. Yours wasn't healing on its own, right?
No.
And so that's what makes me wonder, like, hey, were we working too much, maybe burning the candle a little too much? So as we are doing the treatment, we're also doing some of the breathing and the vagal nerve stimulation and just trying to decrease the pain as well. And so I'm hoping that now that we're here is you're just closer to that rest and digest and getting that healing side activated. So we did the treatment on the neck. I know you might still have some issues from time to time, but generally it's like you can still use your arm. You can still do all the things that were problematic before. It's just moving you in a closer direction towards healing is what we had to do with that neck issue. So that's called spinal decompression or non-surgical spinal decompression. We do that for the low back. We do that for the neck as well. And for whatever reason, necks seem to take a little bit longer than low backs. I don't know why. It's just the last like 5 or 6 cervical herniations that I've seen have just taken a little bit longer than low backs. So,
and I want to tell people what that decompression is like, because it sounds painful, but it's not at all. In fact, I fall asleep a lot of times during the decompression. In the decompression, you lay on a table and it basically just stretches your neck. Just a little bit at a time. Like, what is it, 20 minutes or something? You're on the table, 15 minutes, something like that. And it's no pain at all. I thought when you mentioned it, I thought, oh, it's going to be painful, but not at all. In fact, like I said, I'll listen to a podcast while I'm in it, or I'll fall asleep sometimes. And it's hard for me to fall asleep during the day. So it's not painful at all. So whoever's listening, don't let any of this scare you. This is all stuff that is not painful. That's the thing, is you've done it and you made me feel so comfortable, because I lived a lot of years with headaches, not knowing that I was allergic to a lot of foods and things until you made me aware of what I should stay away from and things. And it's made a big difference I don't have headaches like I did. That's great. And I think people live with pain. I lived with pain for a lot of years, just knowing that that was normal for me. And now I don't live in pain like that anymore because you made me aware. And so I just think it's important people become aware that there's solutions out there and there's hope for people that are stressed out. You know, I made a commitment to you and to myself. I mean, for years, my husband's been trying to tell me to slow down. My kids have been trying to tell me not to be so, do so much and try to handle so much at one time. But that's just always how I've been wired. And a lot of business owners are wired that way. A lot of loan officers are wired that way. But there are ways to slow down without giving up your business.
Totally.
Do you have a loan partner who does the loan consultations, structures the loan, and converts the buyer to work with you? Or maybe you have a loan partner or a team member that you would like to move into that position so that you can be freed up to go get even more loans. How about a newer loan officer who could benefit from some training in how to convert buyers to work with them? Our client conversion training is very specific to this role. It will help them convert even more clients to work with you and your team. We help you to be seen as a trusted advisor. We cover every aspect of converting clients to work with you. They're going to learn emotional intelligence, what it is and how to utilize it. They'll discover the key to a success mindset. Yep, we go deep on this one. How to build rapport right from the first conversation. How to ask the right questions, how to answer objections, specific dialogues and strategies to overcome rate shoppers. They're going to practice live with other class members, and they're going to also learn how to ask for and receive referrals. How to master the loan consultation with loan strategies that help the buyer make great decisions for their future. Client conversion training will set your team apart when they implement the training that they're going to receive in our class. It's a virtual interactive class on Zoom with live trainers, and your team members can attend from wherever they are as long as they have audio and video. Everyone participates. It's a 10-hour live class divided into 2.5-hour sessions from 9 to 11:30 on Thursday and Friday for 2 weeks in a row. Sign up your loan partner today at loanteamtraining.com. You'll find the class on the Client Conversion Training tab. But I've made a commitment that I'm not going to push myself like I did before, because that's the difference, is when you push yourself, you make it worse. And that decompression in my neck, or that compression in my neck, got worse because of how I'm using the computer. And so I limited my time on the computer as well as getting the treatment. And you gave me lots of ideas of how to do that.
Yeah. So, because I'm not sure how long we can go today, but why don't we cover this right now? We'll just kind of run through some of the basic things that you can do to decrease stress, but also like stay healthy, right? Certainly,
Perfect.
you guys that are loan officers, you're essentially running your own business, right? It's like, whether you're in sales or whatnot, like you eat what you sow. So you've got to be able to say the right things, do the right things, stay on point, stay focused, remember your appointments, remember what's going on with the case. Even though you've got all your reminders there in front of you, sometimes it's easier and people are like, wow, you remembered that about like their personal life. And it just makes a better connection, which then leads to better referrals, which then leads to more business, right?
Yes.
So it can be like super important, just decreasing your stress. And here's why I say that. So their main hormone that makes, well, basically your stress hormone is cortisol. Okay. So cortisol elevates when we're under stress, whether we're running from a bear, we receive a bad email, or we had a fight with our significant other, right? And so that fight or flight system is going to go up, and it's also going to, on the tail end, it's going to release cortisol. That's normal in a short-term situation, right? Let's say you got a deal. It's at the deadline. I don't know if we're going to get it in, and then it passes and it should go down. That's normal. The thing is, if it just keeps happening back to back to back to back to back, it's going to remain elevated. And so that cortisol by itself not only messes with your brain, but messes with memory, which is going to ultimately mess with your ability to focus and attend on things. And then long story short, that's going to create gut problems. So like, it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of loan officers out there, they're working their tails off. They're maybe burning the candle at both ends a little bit. They're having a little bit of trouble sleeping. They're maybe having headaches from time to time, whether it's from staring at the screen or just being in an office with artificial light for 12 hours a day. And then they start to develop like food sensitivities, right? And so like those cause inflammation, and that causes cortisol to go up. So you tend to get in this little vicious little cycle, even though it starts with small symptoms, like over time, those symptoms tend to grow, right? I'm like kind of describing your whole life, but yours was an abrupt change with that concussion. So everybody else tends to happen slowly until like a life event happens, and then all of a sudden they can't handle it, and boom, they get anxiety, and they're like, I've never had anxiety before. What the heck is going on?
Yes.
So all of these things I'm going to try to summarize in like the basic stuff that you can do. Number one, you can change your diet to be a little more protein, fatty, but like less carbs. Right. So certainly if you're stuck in the office or if you're stuck eating fast food, you've got to find a way to make better choices, because that cortisol, as it goes up, it also increases blood sugar. Right. So as cortisol goes up, more blood sugar is coming out. So we start to enter that pre-diabetes world. I've seen a lot of people who are chronically stressed, usually from work. It's those hard workers. They just live in that gray area of pre-diabetes, and nothing makes it go down. Nothing makes it go up either. Right. So it's just, you're living in a kind of a middleman world. So if you can reduce your own stress by the breathing that we're going to talk about, it's going to make that number physically go down. So you're not going to have to treat it with metformin. You're not going to have to treat it with supplementation. You can just calm your system down, and your cortisol drops, blood sugar drops.
Love it.
So the first thing that I would say is like gluten and dairy free can certainly be beneficial. Basically, all of that stuff is inflammatory at this point. So you're probably better off without it, even though it tastes amazing, right? You're probably better off without it. I would go a minimum of 30 to 45 days before you have any type of cheat day, just to see the difference of I had a piece of pizza or like, I went out for pizza dinner 6 weeks later and I was just boom, I felt bloated. I was brain foggy. I didn't sleep that night. That's what it's doing to you on a regular basis, potentially. It's just
Yes.
an obvious, it's called an elimination diet where you just get off everything for a little while. Inflammation levels go down, then you re-expose yourself, and boom, inflammation goes through the roof. And it's like a basically the cheapest way to do like a food sensitivity test.
Okay.
So gluten and dairy, certainly you can avoid it. You can make your own choice. Like I'll have it from time to time, but the more I eat carnivore type diet, the better I can tolerate exposures to that stuff because my
Hmm.
gut's not constantly inflamed. In terms of like calming the nervous system down, a lot of people try to meditate, but the front part of the brain has to be so engaged and powerful that you can actually shut everything else out. Most people that try to meditate are saying things like I'm trying so hard to meditate and I can only get there for like 1 to 2 minutes and then I just get distracted. So you're
Hmm.
not actually getting any meditation done in like a 10-20 minute cycle, maybe 1 to 2 minutes of that. That's just a lot of wasted effort. So the first thing that we start doing with people is just having them breathe, right? So we go in through the nose for 5 seconds, out through the mouth for 15 seconds. And we try to do something like maybe 10 to 50 of those a day just to start calming the nervous system. In the office, depends on what triggers look like stress levels and things like that. We start to apply values to those bigger triggers. And then you actually have to increase the breathing rate or the amount of times you do that to match what levels of stress you have. So
Hmm.
50 might not do anything. 120, 150, 200 in a day might make a significant difference for someone. So it just kind of depends on what you need out there, how stressed you feel like you might be. And then we talk about positive self-talk, right? I don't remember if I gave you that book. It's called
Yes.
Negative. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you've spoken with him. So
Yep. Dr.
um,
Shad Helmstetter, who wrote that book, has been on my podcast.
yeah,
Yes.
and so it's a great book. It's basically 40 years of these tips and tricks on how to just think positive or to identify negative self-talk and then change it to be positive. So it's
Yes.
about an hour to 2 hour read. It's super simple, but everybody gets that book if I feel that there's any negative self-talk going on. And so I get it for them, they keep it and they can do whatever they want with it. But generally that piece, the breathing, both of those calm the nervous system down. And then all the other stuff is like rewiring. We just finished all the recording for an online program. So for these distance
Neat.
people who are like doing pretty good, but they're so busy they can't make it out here.
Uh-huh.
Totally understand. That's why we're trying to make something more convenient. I would say it's like 70 to 80% as robust as our in-office program. The in-office stuff is where all of our technology, like laser therapy, pulsed EMF, any shift waves, laser, vagal nerve stim, and all this other red light technology stuff.
Hmm.
That's really a big piece of what sets it apart from doing homework or if you were to do our distance program. But we can get people these devices. We work with all of our vendors and they're starting to come out with much better pricing for home use because they were only selling to docs. Now they're trying to kind of cover their bases. So
Hmm.
say it's like a little less powerful laser, but it's great power for someone at home that can decrease their anxiousness. They can decrease their stress level. They can help to activate the cellular healing. That's basically all the technology that we use, improves blood flow, improves cellular healing, and decreases inflammation. So everything that we do in the office is kind of surrounding all that. So deep breathing, watch your sugar intake. So decrease your sugar, decrease your carbs, decrease your gluten, decrease your dairy potentially. That right there is going to probably make a significant difference in a lot of people. And I would do that for 30 to 45 days. And then the breathing, use that as your sleep hygiene, try to improve your sleep and those things like the basics, right? Like get sun exposure in the morning to help reset your circadian rhythm through your retina. That can decrease your cortisol and increase your melatonin before bed so that you can actually sleep better. So there's all these different things that you can do, but generally like get up and go for a walk if you're stuck behind a computer, right? Do your
Hmm.
deep breathing while you're out there. take your shoes off, stand in the grass, like let your neurological system discharge and all those electrons discharge back into the earth it's called grounding, right? Can help stabilize cells
Yes.
as well. Ton of different things that people can do if you're just feeling stuck, right? It's like consider doing some of these things on here and just see how it turns out. And if you want any extra help, obviously, you can direct them to us, or I can direct them to a doc in their area, and we can get them the more intense or more specified help that they might need.
Yes. So the name of the book is Negative Self-Talk and How to Change It by Dr.
Uh-huh.
Shad Helmstetter. We'll put it in the show notes. And the name of your website is
Mhm.
desertbrainandspine.com, right?
Yep. So, yep, desertbrainandspine.com. Also, apparently, social media has taken off. So, Instagram and Facebook are pretty chill, but we do a lot of things on there, a lot of education, just stories of our podcasts and things like that. And then TikTok has just been blowing up. People with
Wow.
thoughts from all over the world are contacting us to try to come in and treat. Right now, we've got
Fantastic.
someone in from Florida and we've got someone in from California, both treating different conditions, and they're having really good outcomes. We do about a 3-week intensive. And so that's honestly, about 4 to 6 months worth of treatment in 3 weeks.
Mm,
So if they can handle it, we try to do that. We try to create stabilization and then progress them through to a full exercise program by the end, if they can handle it. And most people do fantastic. So
yeah.
they'll come in at maybe 30% function. They'll leave around 80%. And then we coach them through the rest of the way.
So awesome. I'm so grateful for the day that I called Roberto and he told me about you.
Mhm.
And I'm grateful, and you'll always be my doctor. Whatever I have, I'm going to you because you're the one that I trust. And I know that you can help me in so many areas that most people don't think they can even get help in.
Right.
So thank you once again, Dr. Teams, for being my advocate, my doctor, my person who has helped me. Like I said, my husband, my kids, my people who know me, my coaches have tried to get me to take a break once in a while. And it was you, because of the pain that I experienced, and then you telling me, and it finally sunk in. And
Mhm.
so I'm really doing really well at taking rest and recovery like I should now,
Awesome.
and not pushing myself more than I should.
That's awesome.
So thank you
Well,
once
you're
again.
you're very welcome. It's been a pleasure for myself as well as our staff to work with you. It's always tough seeing people come in a lot of pain, but watching you turn back into the old you is like that's our present, it's just being able to see you living life the way you want to again and enjoying it. You've done all the work this whole time. I just know which direction to push you. It's been a lot of fun working through all these things with you these years, and yeah, it's just I enjoy every time you're in here, but I also love not seeing you for a while.
Yeah, that's right. You'd
That's
rather
usually
not
a
see
good
me,
thing.
right?
So, yep, that's
Yeah,
usually
and
a
you have
good
an
thing.
amazing team as well. That was one thing I wanted to mention. You have a great staff. Every single one of them cares about everybody, and I've
Yeah,
seen it firsthand.
yeah, we got really lucky. So I opened this clinic back in September 2022. Just I connected with an old patient and she came to work for me. And then I connected with somebody else. She came to work for me. And we just kept slowly building this team. And it's a team of ladies that are just fantastic. They're quick on their feet. They're quick learners. They're very empathetic, very passionate about helping people, and they just care. And so
Yes.
they also keep me like from going up. I talk the big game, but they try to keep me calming down. They take care of me as well. So to some degree, it's one big happy family here, and I know they will be pleased to hear what you have to say and the feedback you give. But
And
certainly, they know how to take care of people alongside of what we're doing, clinically here. So yeah,
yes.
it's just a lot of fun coming to work.
And they have a great leader at their helm as well, a great doctor. So, and when you and I started, you were at a different place and you opened the location in 2022.
Mhm.
It's further from my house than it used to be, but I don't care. I make the 45-minute drive
Yep.
over and back because you're worth it. So, thank you for being the
I
one that
appreciate
really has helped
that.
me in my life physically to get better. And I feel like a new person.
That's awesome.
And I'm
Well,
just so grateful.
I appreciate the kind words. I'm here for you anytime you want. If you ever have any issues, of course, we can certainly help out. I like to say, don't be a stranger. Come see me from time to time, of course, but I'd prefer not to.
Yes.
That just means things are going really well, right? So if anybody has any questions on, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? We've got a little chat bot on our website. You can just chit chat with my staff about that. You can give us a call. We're in Arizona, so it's 480-674-9199. We've got the online stuff, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, just
Love it.
Desert Brain and Spine, and then desertbrainandspine.com. Oh, also we do case reviews and almost like testimonial style podcasts for our Neuro Reset podcast. It's called the Neuro Reset podcast. So if you have any interest in checking that out, feel free. We'd
That's
love to have you
awesome.
listening. And if you gain anything from it, that's even better.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Teams, for being on here today. I really appreciate it. And thank you for making my quality of life what it is today.
Well,
Seriously.
it's been my pleasure, and thank you for hosting me and helping share the info on what we can help people with.
Okay, so thank you everybody for being here. We really appreciate it. And thanks to Dr. Teams for being here. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to him. He is amazing. So everybody have a great day, okay?
All right, have a good day, guys.
And do me one more favor. If you got some benefit out of this today, would you please share it with other people that you know? Doesn't have to be loan officers, because this isn't a loan officer specific podcast today. So if you know anybody that's dealing with some physical issues, feel free to pass it on to them, okay?